blood dripping from the knife as Patricia Winters stood over my daughter's wheelchair. HOA rules, she snarled as Sophie clutched her slashed ribs. Patricia was unaware that I was the county sheriff, unaware that the patrol cars racing towards our home were filled with men who called me boss. Justice would be served swiftly. Move away from those roses before watching full story. Comment below from where you're watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. The scream ripped through our backyard, followed by my daughter's horrified scream. I was not there to witness it. I was 15 minutes away at the sheriff's station when the call came in. Later, the security cameras would show it all. Patricia Winters, president of our neighborhood HOA, striding into our backyard with gardening shears and a knife, slashing at the rose bushes my late wife had planted. My 16-year-old daughter, Sophie, paralyzed from the waist down after a car accident 3 years ago, wheeling herself out to avert the desecration of her mother's memory garden. The struggle. Patricia's face twisting in rage, the knife flashing, and then blood pooling on Sophie's shirt as she collapsed. In her wheelchair, I wasn't there when my disabled daughter needed me most. My phone rang at 5:30 p.m. Sophie's caretaker, Mrs. Rodriguez, was calling. Her voice was broken by panic. "Sheriff Taylor," she cried. "That hoe woman, she stabbed Sophie. There's blood everywhere. The ambulance is coming, but oh God, she cut her with a knife." The world reeled. On 15 years as county sheriff, I'd seen murder scenes less horrifying than the images drowning my mind. The 15-minute drive home I made in 7 minutes. 3 patrol cars followed without my asking. My deputies knew my daughter was my world. When I pulled into our driveway, chaos greeted me. Neighbors stood in shocked clusters. The ambulance lights painted everything in throbbing red. 2 paramedics were wheeling Sophie out on a stretcher, an oxygen mask over her face, her shirt stained with blood. Her wheelchair sat empty by the rose bushes, dotted with red speckles. "Sophie!" I rushed to her side, my badge and gun useless against whatever had hurt my child. Sophie's eyes fluttered open. "Dad," she whispered through the mask, "I'm okay." Mrs. Rodriguez was standing there, shaking. I tried to hold her back. "Sheriff," I tried. "Stop." "Who? What occurred?" My voice could barely be contained as I took Sophie's hand. That woman from the HOA, Mrs. Rodriguez, pointed across the street where Patricia Winters stood with her arms folded, observing the scene take place with a frown on her face. "She came into your backyard with gardening shears." When Sophie went outside in her wheelchair to inquire what she was doing, the woman became upset. One of the paramedics approached me, 3 deep lacerations to her right side. The knife cut across 2 of her ribs. The 7th and 8th ribs have been cut into, although fortunately not severed entirely. She'll need stitches and surgery to determine if there's internal damage and repair the bone. I kissed Sophie's forehead as they loaded her into the ambulance. "I'll be right behind you, sweetheart." Deputy Jenkins placed his hand on my shoulder. "Go with Sophie, sir. We'll handle things here." But I couldn't move. 20 years in law enforcement had taught me to control my emotions, but seeing my daughter's blood had untamed something ancient. I walked across the street, my uniform suddenly feeling too tight. Patricia Winters didn't back up when I approached her. She stood upright, her expensive cardigan spotless, her manicured nails clutching a clipboard. "Sheriff Taylor," she said, cold. "While this is unfortunate, perhaps now you'll address the violations on your property." "Violations?" My voice was dangerously low. She consulted her clipboard. "The rose bushes in front of your questionable vegetation, such as the 30-inch height limitation." I posted 3 notices. When there was no compliance, I proceeded to enforce compliance as authorized by HOA bylaws. "You trespassed onto my property, uninvited, and injured my daughter." Patricia scoffed. "Your daughter interfered with official HOA business. I was simply pruning the non-compliant vegetation when she attacked me. The knife was to cut twine. It was to cut twine. It was self-defense. My deputies had gathered behind me. Mrs. Rodriguez had shown them the security camera footage from our porch. Deputy Jenkins knelt down and whispered, "We've seen the video, sir. The woman is lying." She deliberately swung the knife at Sophie when Sophie tried to stop her from cutting down the roses. The roses Mrs. Taylor planted before she passed away. Something broke inside me then. Not the control I kept but the wall between Sheriff Taylor and Sophie's father completely disappeared. Patricia Winters, you're under arrest for criminal trespass assault with a weapon and aggravated battery on a disabled child. Her expression transformed from smugness to shock. You can't arrest me. I'm enforcing HOA rules. HOA rules don't override the law, I told Deputy Jenkins as she handcuffed her. And they don't give you the privilege to stab a child. I didn't know she was disabled. Patricia screamed as they led her to a patrol car. And those roses are a violation of Code Section 5.3. I finally got into my car and followed the ambulance. At the hospital, Sophie needed 37 stitches and surgery to repair muscle damage and bone where the knife had penetrated her 7th and 8th ribs. The doctor said she was lucky half an inch deeper and the knife would have punctured her lung. The surgeon explained they had to place small titanium plates on both damaged ribs to enable them to heal properly. That night, while Sophie slept in her hospital bed, I made calls not as a father seeking revenge, but as a sheriff doing his job. By morning, I had learned a lot about Patricia Winters. She had been sued 3 times for similar HOA overreach in other communities. Each case settled quietly. She had a suspended real estate license for ethics violations, and most importantly, she'd been collecting excessive fines from our neighborhood for 2 years, money that never made it to the HOA treasury. I met with the district attorney first thing in the morning. By lunchtime, Patricia was charged with fraud embezzlement and a pattern of harassment. The judge denied bail due to the aggressive nature of her attack on Sophie. While Sophie recovered neighbors I barely knew filled our house with food and flowers. Many shared stories of Patricia's intimidation tactics. Families who'd moved away rather than face her. Older residents who'd paid fines for infractions they hadn't done. 2 weeks later, I wheeled Sophie into the courthouse for Patricia's preliminary hearing. Patricia's lawyer had been confident they'd be able to reduce the charges until the prosecution presented the security tape. The video showed everything. Sophie in her wheelchair rolling out into the backyard, Patricia hacking down the roses aggressively, Sophie pleading with her to stop telling her they'd been planted by her late mother, Patricia. Rage distorting her face, deliberately slashing at Sophie with the knife, not once, not twice, but 3 times as Sophie tried to defend herself. The courtroom was quiet. Patricia's lawyer requested a brief recess. When court resumed, Patricia accepted a plea deal, 8 years for aggravated assault and restitution to all the HOA residents she had defrauded. As we left the courthouse, Sophie looked up at me. "Dad, can we replant Mom's roses? Of course, sweetheart. Taller than 30 in 2, she smiled. You know what Mum always said about her roses? I nodded, my throat tight. Sarah had planted those roses the day we brought Sophie home from the hospital. Beauty should never be regulated. I quoted, "Life slowly returned to normal." The neighborhood elected a new HOA board that prioritized community over punishment. Sophie's scars healed, though she would always have the marks of that day. One morning, 6 months after the incident, I found Sophie in the backyard early before school. She was carefully tending the new rose bushes we'd planted. "They're doing so well," she said. When she saw me looking, "Mum would be happy." I kneeled down beside her wheelchair. "What brought you out here so early?" Sophie pushed her glasses up. "I had a dream about Mom." She said, "Sometimes something beautiful comes after awful days." She reached out and touched the largest rosebush, its stem, well exceeding the former HOA's height restrictions. She said, "We can't let fear keep us from growing." I looked at my daughter, the strongest person I knew, and felt a weight lift that I hadn't known I'd been carrying. I had spent months angry at Patricia, at the system that had given her power at myself for not being home that day. "Your mum was pretty smart," I said. "The smartest," Sophie agreed. "Dad, I've been thinking I want to start a support group at school for kids with disabilities. A lot of them are afraid to speak up when things are wrong." I helped her adjust her wheelchair. "I think that's a great idea." I wasn't sure. Before she admitted, I thought maybe people would just see my wheelchair or my scars, but now I know that standing up for yourself matters, even when it's scary. As I pushed her back toward the house, Sophie pointed to a letter in our mailbox. It was from the state prosecutor's office. Patricia Winter's appeal had been denied. She would serve her full sentence. I could have felt satisfaction or vindication. Instead, I felt only relief that one chapter had closed, allowing new ones to begin. That evening, while helping Sophie with her homework, I received a call from the mayor. "Taylor," he said. "Without preamble, the City Council wants to revise all HOA regulations after what happened with your daughter. They need someone who understands both the law and the community to oversee it. Interested?" I looked at Sophie, who was watching me. "Curiously I could be," I said, "but I'll need to have my chief advisor sit in on the meetings." Sophie's eyebrows rose. After I hung up, I filled in the mayor's request. "They want you to fix the HOAs." Sophie said, "They want us to help make sure what happened to you never happens to anyone else." I corrected, "Your opinion is important to this." Sophie was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke. "We ought to start by making rules about going onto people's property and maybe add something about not disturbing memorial plantings." I smiled. "I think those are terrific suggestions, Chief Advisor Taylor." That night, when I tucked Sophie into bed, she took my hand. "Dad, I'm not angry anymore about what happened. You're not—" She shook her head. "Being angry takes too much energy. I'd rather use that energy, making things change." I kissed her forehead in amazement at her wisdom. "When did you get smarter than your old man?" She smiled. "I've always been smarter. I just let you be the sheriff so you can feel important." We laughed together, and for the first time in months, it felt completely real. The next day, a certified letter arrived for Sophie. Inside was a handwritten letter from Patricia Winters. "I am writing to apologize for my actions. It started is no excuse for what I did every day. I remember the look on your face when I hurt you, and I am filled with shame. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know that I understand now how wrong I was." Sophie read it twice, then carefully folded it back into the envelope. "What do you think I asked her?" "I think," she said slowly, "that sometimes people can change, but only if they're held responsible first." As I watched my daughter roll towards the backyard to view her mother's roses now blooming freely towards the sky, I knew Sophie had learned something I was still struggling to: the balance between justice and mercy. The roses had started to bloom again, pushing through their scars from being cut down. Like Sophie, they had emerged stronger, more vibrant, refusing to be limited by the damage inflicted on them, and watching them both grow, I found healing.